MGTOW, Feminism, Utilitarianism, and Ethics. Let's take a look at one of the biggest flaws I see in the ideologies of today. The backwards way that they develop many of their ethics. Let's define ethics before I go any further. According to Merriam-Webster, ethics is an area of study that deals with ideologies about what is good and bad behavior. A branch of philosophy dealing with what is morally right or wrong. It is not uncommon for ideologies to approach ethics from the top down. I'll call this collectivist ethics. By this I mean that they make observations about society and ex post facto develop ethical principles or rules for individuals to live by. This might be done innocently and with the best of intentions, but it does open up the door for authoritarian ideologues to justify their desires to dominate others in a way that would make a dominatrix cringe. My safe word is, am I being detained? Nearly all ideologies fall into this temptation to observe a negative outcome in society and then create ethics that individuals have to live by in order to correct said outcome. This is often accompanied by a call for the government to intervene. For the arguments I make here, it doesn't matter if the observations are true or not. The flaw is looking at trends in human action, identifying outcomes that you want to change, and then creating rules to control human behavior to achieve that goal. This is collectivist ethics. It's rather insane because groups of people cannot act ethically or unethically. Groups are made up of individuals, and only individuals can act or think. I'm not sure why this needs to be explained. This is why the concept of social justice is completely batshit insane, but I'll get into that later. Ethics is about determining what is good and bad behavior for individuals. We create ethics for the interactions between individuals, not the interactions between individuals and groups. We didn't determine that rape is wrong by comparing the statistics of consensual sex versus unconsensual sex. We didn't study the mental and physical ramifications of rape on a person. We didn't study whether or not rape is an effective way to continue the human race. We determined rape is wrong because it violates the consent of the person on the receiving end of the non-consensual sex. We analyzed the action by observing the individuals involved, not by looking at studies, statistics, and group actions. This is how the ethical content of all actions need to be determined, especially when it comes to nebulous concepts like privilege. Don't get me wrong, you can think whatever the hell you want to think, and you should be free to persuade others to the virtues of those ideas. Hell, I don't even strictly have any ethical qualms with private organizations and individuals calling people out, using social pressure, and ostracizing people they don't like. Twitter and Facebook can ban conservatives from their site till they can't remember what the world looks like outside of their own colons. It's their platform, and they can do with it what they please. But them not being honest about it is a big problem. I say let them hang themselves. Property rights trump any childish principle of equal representation or inclusion. To be precise, my beef is with government coercion and an ideology's willingness to wield it. Bad ethics backed by the power of the state cements those ethics into stone and brings the boot down on all of our necks. Without further ado, let's make this whole exercise relevant to the title I chose for this post. Let's analyze a few of the ideologies that I'll call the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good. MGTOW, men going their own way. Surprised? Well, hear me out. As far as ideologies go, MGTOW is perhaps the lowest level offender here, if at all. It is mainly focused on describing the world, the relationship between the sexes, and giving advice to men on how to navigate all of those realities. The approach that MGTOW content creators make is varied. Some rely on anecdotal evidence to develop their ideas, and some rely heavily on scientific studies, theories, and statistics. Regardless of their approach, they rarely, if ever, take ethical stances or advocate for government enforcement of their preferences. It is concerned with helping men to avoid the pitfalls of our society and to gain self-actualization, all through voluntary persuasion. I must admit, While I am not MGTOW, I do have a fondness for it because of its individualistic nature. It operates very much within my personal, political, and ethical beliefs. Whether or not you like what MGTOW has to say about society, or women, or its advice to men, it does not seek to control anyone. For more of my thoughts on MGTOW, see my video, 3 Things Men Should Learn from MGTOW. The bad, feminism, Black Lives Matter, and social justice. Feminism and its inbred cousins, Black Lives Matter and social justice, have a terminal case of collectivized ethics. Social justice, as defined by Wikipedia, is the fair and just relation between the individual and society. I'm sure you can see what I think the error is here. From seeking to control what people are allowed to say, how people run their businesses, and how people conduct their sex lives, feminists and the like are here to impose their societal preferences on us. And it's working. They are the perfect example of compiling data and observations, as flawed and incorrect as they are, and using them to control the actions of individuals, most often at the point of the gun held by the state. Almost the entirety of modern feminist ethics is based on collectivized ethics. If one group is perceived to be suffering in some way, then there must be some other group that is the cause. If there is a group that is at fault, then surely the individuals in that group are at fault as well. Do you get where I'm going here? If you approach ethics this way, then all the people of the offending group are at fault, no matter how pure their personal actions are. After all,
you're fucking a white male!
Is a rebuttal to counter-arguments given by, you guessed it, white males. This approach inevitably leads to whitewashing, ironic wording, huh? All the individuals in a oppressed group and convicting all the individuals of the oppressing group. It's a victim cult placing original sin on all the individuals of an outgroup. I am by no means a fan of modern policing, but Black Lives Matter does this to the police. No matter how criminal and in the wrong a black individual might be that gets shot by the police, they will react in the worst possible way. Everything is on the table, from conducting disruptive demonstrations to outright riots. The black individual's membership in the black community absolves them of all their wrongdoing, and the police officer's membership to law enforcement ensures his automatic guilt. This is the approach that is used when feminism talks about the wage gap, affirmative action, toxic masculinity, gender roles, hate speech, gender representation in industries, and so on. For all their talk of the importance of consent in interpersonal and sexual interactions, they don't give a damn about the consensual activity that might contribute to whatever problematic things about society that they see. Their collectivist ethics trump their individual ethics every damn time. Most importantly to me is their blindness to the level of consent in the ultimate power disparity, that between the individual and the government. For all the parts of our lives that they want to control, we should start talking about feminism's war on consent. In their minds, their authoritarian actions are trying to reach some sort of utilitarian or egalitarian society. Which leads me to the final ideology on the chopping block. The ugly, utilitarianism and egalitarianism. Utilitarianism and the similarly situated egalitarianism are presented as the ultimate reasonable ideologies. Utilitarianism stating that actions are right if they are useful or for the benefit of the majority, and egalitarianism stating that all people are equal and deserve equal rights and opportunities. Even these ideologies, as fair and idealistic as they sound, are steeped in collectivized ethics. The very goal of benefiting the majority is an exercise in identifying a desirable societal outcome and binding the actions of individuals to it, whether it's paying X amount of taxes or prohibiting drugs. In addition, the starting point that all people are equal and deserve the same opportunities is also an exercise in making a generalization that you wish were true and working down to the individual. No two individuals are equal, and equalizing opportunities is impossible. Can we give a short guy the same opportunity to join the NBA as a tall guy? No. Equal rights is something that I can get on board with, but that is a huge subject unto itself. Imagine the power that is contained in being able to determine what benefits the majority, or what equality looks like. These are the very same premises that people use to bully each other, and that the government uses to increase its powers over the lives of individuals. This is the call used by all tyrants and authoritarians. One of the most dangerous things anyone that follows a utilitarian ideology with authoritarian leanings can say is, according to scientific or economic studies, X is true. It appeals to the knee-jerk impulse that people have nowadays to follow the data. If the data jumped off a cliff, would you do it? Should we subject free speech to scientific and statistical analysis to see if we should keep it? Freedom of religion, private property, consumption of unhealthy foods and alcohol, selection of a spouse. What if we could prove that limiting or abolishing these things would benefit the majority? I don't think so. Are utilitarians only a handful of data points away from becoming authoritarians? I think it's a very real danger. Now that I think about it, if you look at the general electorate, I think we're already there. Collectivized ethics suffers from the same flaw that all collectivized things do. Responsibility and accountability for said thing is dispersed across an entire group of people, so that all people are responsible and accountable for what happens, no matter what they do as individuals. You are not responsible for the actions of people that share your gender, race, orientation, profession, geographical location, or what have you. We already have a pretty good ethical foundation already. Our interpersonal interactions should be consensual. You should be responsible for your actions. That's it. Even if those interactions add to some trend that people don't like, ethics doesn't give a shit about people's authoritarian utopian visions of society. Ethics, which is focused on the individual, doesn't change just because we might want to change some high-level societal outcome. If your ideology tries to forcefully control the actions of peaceful individuals because something about society hurts your feelings, I suggest you get a new ideology. Good ideas don't require force.